now call the September 9th, 2025 work session of the Riverton City Council to order at 7:01 p.m. Councilmember Bailey has agreed to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, after which Councilmember Larson has agreed to give us the invocation. If everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our eternal Heavenly Father, we are thankful for this opportunity to serve in the City Council and help those citizens and first responders. We would ask that Thou might watch and bless them, that they might return home in safety. Father, we would ask also that You would bless us with insight and understanding, that we might facilitate our jobs to the best of our abilities. We ask this humbly in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Administrative Services Director, you could conduct a roll call.
Yes, Your Honor. Councilmember Eric Carr.
Here.
Councilmember Rebecca Pearson Lewis.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Bailey.
Here.
Councilmember Carla Borders.
Here.
Councilmember Kyle Larson.
Here.
Councilmember Karen Johnson.
Here.
Mayor Tim Hancock.
I'm here. I declare we have a quorum. I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
There was just so many there, I wasn't sure how it was going to shake out. I will say we had a motion by Councilman Carr, second by Councilwoman Johnson. Any discussion, amendments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. I vote aye. Motion passes. Community and public safety discussion. So, work session came about because of concerns expressed by members of the community. People wanted to know what can we do to improve public safety in Riverton. Tonight's a chance for us as a council to talk through that question. I've got on my agenda city administrator's report, but did you have anything you wanted to start with as an introduction, or what was your intention there, Mr. Butterfield?
No, Your Honor. This is more an opportunity for the council to discuss, and we're just here to support you.
Okay. Well, I want to start by pointing out some significant steps that I think we've taken so far. We've improved efforts on police recruitment, very close to fully staffed. That's not a small accomplishment. I really appreciate the hard work from the chief, from Lieutenant Wharton, from the other members of the Riverton Police Department who have put a lot of work into that. We've increased funding for capital projects in the police department. We've been able to find some new ways to be able to fund things like police cars, that sort of thing. We've put work into other things like MDTs, trying to get some new technology that we're putting to use for us. We've established a traffic unit, already having an impact. I would note that, well, I don't want to necessarily give things away, but our main individual for the traffic unit puts in a lot of hours, and really appreciate his hard work. Countywide teamwork, we've participated in a multi-jurisdictional enforcement team. That's been for a little while now, but brings officers from around the county. We get to do some problem-oriented policing, focus on different areas in the county. Often they're here in Riverton. They focus a lot on DUIs, that sort of thing. We've taken advantage of the funds through the state for DUI enforcement and that sort of thing that tends to coincide with holidays. Targeted enforcement to get our roads safer. We have community service officers. They're taking on responsibilities that used to fall to code enforcement and have more police presence in our neighborhoods. So I would say that statistically, one of the biggest things that I've been hoping we can see is putting a dent in our DUIs, and I would say that has happened. We've been able to see statistics from Fremont County for DUI fatalities, those sorts of things that have improved. I think it shows we're on the right track. But the question then becomes, what do we want to do next? What are some different ways that we can improve the community, make sure that we have a safe community, an engaging community, and that people want to be here, want to stick around here. I guess as we discussed tonight, I would encourage that we focus on bigger picture items, directions we can go, and kind of, rather than getting into the nitty-gritty of exactly how to do it here as a council, we could either direct staff or have different ways that we can have a smaller committee that can work on things. I guess just to make sure we're using our time wisely, rather than having this go into all the details that we can on things. I think bigger picture would be the better way to go. And we can follow up. Anything we discussed today that we think we want to follow up with a little bit more discussion or ideas or ways to do it, we can do that. In particular, we have liquor licenses that we have a discussion scheduled in October. So I do want to discuss that some tonight, but I just don't want it to overtake all the discussion because we already have that set. Opioid settlement funding, I think we should consider some broad ideas. I think details would be handled with a committee on that. Mr. Butterfield and I have been visiting about what that could look like. We've been patient and not been spending our opioid funding, kind of trying to let other communities go first so we can see what works. It's burning a hole in my pocket, frankly, but I do want to make sure that we're deliberate in how we spend it so it can make the biggest impact. We have Mr. Sollers here, who serves as both our prosecutor and our city attorney. His perspective, I think, will be valuable as we weigh options that touch both public safety, the courts, that sort of thing. We have our police chief, and we have, of course, our 2 lieutenants here tonight, which are very valuable, and they've been a boon for the community as well. So I guess what I would say is how I would suggest we would start, Mr. Sollers, is just hear from you briefly. Tell us how things are going, because we don't tend to get to visit with you very often. Tell us how things are going with the municipal court, anything that's new or different, any directions that you've been taking. Just tell us how that's going.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. I don't know that necessarily there's any new directions that we're taking. The court's emphasis, and I guess one of the main items are drunk driving, public intoxication. We deal with a lot of those. As far as what the court attempts to do is try to get the individual defendants some help. You can throw them in jail for 5 months, 6 months, but the problem with that is twofold. One, they're kind of in with their buddies who they get intoxicated with, and more importantly, there's no treatment aspect. They just sit, and when they're released, they tend to, reoffend fairly quickly. So the court strives very hard to get people into treatment. They order that they get substance abuse evaluations. They even take the step of putting them in jail for maybe 30 days. But during those 30 days, the judge will instruct the clerk to try to get somebody in there to perform a substance abuse evaluation. It used to happen regularly that all the evaluators would go into the jail. Right now, there's very few that will. I'm not real sure why, but basically they have a waiting list, and they just don't go in very often to do evaluations. One of the main issues also, obviously, is payment of fines. The city always has had and continues to have a large balance due in fines. But a majority of the people who constitute quite a bit of the fines, some of them owe $12,000, $15,000, But they're either disabled, they don't, they don't work either by choice or because they have an addiction. And so, the court even entices them that if they will go to treatment, complete treatment, then at the end of that, the court will give them some credit off of their fines related to alcohol. At one point, several years ago, there was additional funding for jail, I think right at the end of COVID. And the judge used that frequently. I mean, she would give people 90, 180, or 120 days in jail. But what we found out is they would go to the jail, they get no treatment. Upon release, they came back to the area, met up with their friends, and were right back into the same behavior. And so, I mean, the biggest remedy to the alcohol problem is to get these people into some meaningful treatment. I know there was the one program in California that was taking quite a few. They had several issues and were shut down. Recently, there's a facility in Georgia that has taken a couple of our individuals. They buy them the plane ticket, they get them there. There's one in the state of Oregon, I believe, that will do likewise. But to combat the problem, that's really the answer. Jail gets them out of the community for a period of time, but in the long run, it doesn't help anything because the problem just reoccurs when they're let out. And so I think the court is doing everything they can. Like I said, they order these individuals to get an alcohol evaluation. They also order them to pay fines, and a lot of them tend to do nothing. And after several times, then the court will put them in jail and try to arrange for an evaluator to go in there, but it's not always successful because I don't know why. If they don't like the atmosphere, whatever it might be. But that's, I think, kind of the court's direction that they're going right now is to try to get these individuals some help so that when they do get out of the treatment facility, hopefully they don't revert back to drinking.
I guess, and then as a question here, generally speaking, so Fremont Counseling is the one that will provide substance abuse evaluations, and I guess, tell us a little bit about why those are significant or why that's kind of a step in the process and its significance there, Rick.
Well, I think all of them work this way, but maybe I could use VOA as an example. They have treatment facilities. In order to ever get into a treatment facility, you have to have an evaluation by a licensed, certified evaluator. When they come back with their evaluation, they have I'll call it a point system. If you've been convicted of a DUI, and have no other issues, you're gonna come back at a 0.5, which means that you're gonna go to I think it's a full weekend of classes on the effects of alcohol to try to, get you not to get going down that road. The highest level, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, is a 3.5, and that's a recommendation for inpatient treatment. The reason I use VOA is they then have a facility in Sheridan, and I know they have contacts with the VA who has some facilities. So if you can get the evaluation there, that then leads to going into a treatment facility. one of the issues you run into is there's a gap there. You get your evaluation, they evaluate you at a 3.5, you've got to go to inpatient. Now you got to find an inpatient facility that has an open bed. If not, you're put on a waiting list. Well, what happens between the evaluation and when they finally have a bed opened up? During the interim, VOA provides some treatment at a lower level, but not the intensive inpatient stuff. And so sometimes it's hard to keep those people on the right track for that period of time between the evaluation and actually being able to be admitted to a facility.
And in the meantime, they might be held in the jail, or they might be out, or whatever could be happening.
Yeah, I mean, the court has basically sentenced the person to go to VOA to the point that they'll remain in the courtroom after court. The police department will transport them down there. They start on the process, and any time between a matter of a couple hours to maybe a couple days, a lot of them walk out of the facility. It's not a locked facility. By doing so, they're in contempt of court. There's a warrant issued, and they're picked up, and then they're brought back before the court, but you haven't accomplished anything in helping them to address their problem.
And then I guess, so when we have people that are getting arrested, if it's a substance abuse case, so we're talking, generally speaking, at the city court, it's almost always going to be alcohol, although you do have the possession of marijuana that is available too.
Correct.
So we've got a substance abuse situation. They're seen by the judge. The judge will then typically, if it's a first offense, will say, hey, go get substance abuse evaluation, come back, let us know that you've gotten the treatment done. And a lot of people, that might just be the only thing they see of the system. But for a lot of our individuals who are coming back again and again and again, they're going to be arrested, brought before the judge. The judge is going to order them to get a substance abuse evaluation. May or may not be able to get that done. If they do, it's going to require a lot of work on their part, but I do know our court clerks do a lot to try to arrange those. I'm very aware that Megan puts a lot of work into trying to get those arranged. So we get the substance abuse evaluation done, then you've got to get to treatment. Then it gets even more complicated because now how are you going to get to treatment? Is the jail going to drive you? How are you going to get there? And sometimes we have people that don't even show up. They get a bed date and then they just don't go to it.
Well, and what the judge has been doing recently is she will sentence somebody to 60 to 90 days. In the meantime, Megan, the court clerk, will work to get that person evaluated. And then the judge basically will say, when you have a bed date, and either VOA or the facility will transport you, she will basically release you from jail. I can't say to their custody because they aren't in custody anymore, but directly to the representative who will take you directly there. But there's another component to it, and that is the old adage, you can lead a horse to water. Just recently, within the last month, the judge sentenced somebody to 120 days and said, we're going to work diligently to get you evaluated, and then when you have transportation lined up, or we can release you to a representative, we'll do so. And the individual's response was, do I have an option just to sit my 120 days? And he declined any help that was being offered to him. You run into quite a bit of that, even though you're ordered to get your evaluation, you're ordered to follow the recommendations, which on a lot of them come back at 3.5. Half of them don't get the evaluations, and then we have to put them in jail and try to arrange one for them. But once they get the evaluation during that period of time before there's a bed date, they revert back and, and so part of it is, not all the individuals are wanting to change their lifestyle and get the help that you want. And I don't know, you can't correct that. I've heard the judge say many times, I can't do it for you. You have to do it.
And I do know for a while there, the city, and I don't know how long it's been since this has been done, and maybe we should have had Megan come in too. She was here at the last meeting and was very happy to be here. We had set aside money because when it comes down to it, if we're paying for, let's see, 1 day in jail tends to run, 80,
55, I think.
55? Oh yeah, it's much better than it was before.
It just went down
Yeah.
about a year.
A day in jail is 55, and substance abuse evaluations, often if someone's going to pay for them on their own, they might tend to run somewhere 150 to 200, something like that. That's about the range. Fremont Counseling has a sliding scale for that, so you can show proof that you're indigent and they might give you a reduction, and I think it could go down to hardly anything, $20, I think, or something. But for a while there, the city had been paying for substance abuse evaluations on a case-by-case basis, depending on the individual, depending on the difficulty. Are we still doing that? Might be a question for Ms. Harris.
Go ahead, because you would know.
Your Honor, no, it is not in our budget to pay for ASIs at this point going forward. I will confirm that, though.
And I know that that was something, and I think it was something that we basically were doing almost as a line item from the jail bill, basically. And I think it could be helpful because some of the folks that are being held, they're being held until they get a substance abuse evaluation and get things started in that area. So I know that had been some work we had done, but it might be something to reconsider if we're not doing it anymore. I will say, I know that some of the private providers, like Elevation Wellness, they will go into the jail. At least when I went to their grand opening, I specifically asked them, and they said they would, but they charge. And actually, one of our dispatchers, I think, works with Elevation Wellness to assist with that process of getting substance abuse evaluations. So that is something that we've kind of talked about, and we talked about it a little bit at the DUI task force as well, that gets in the way sometimes in terms of getting the process started with treatment.
Well, and Mayor, they have some very good evaluators on the reservation at White Buffalo and also Eastern Shoshone. And I don't believe for tribal members those cost anything
I think you're correct.
until you make an appointment to meet with your counselor and get the evaluation. When you don't show up, then to get back on their schedule, it's $25. Again, it goes back to the want, that the individual has to want help.
Well, and I just know that had been something that I didn't know if it had fallen by the wayside or not in terms of getting the substance abuse evaluations, but it'd be a worthwhile discussion at least, because when we have individuals that are sitting in jail, and the main reason they're sitting in jail is that they're waiting for a substance abuse evaluation. If you take 3 days of jail, right, and we can narrow a jail sentence by 3 days because we can pay for a substance abuse evaluation, it seems we'd be ahead financially. Okay, any questions for Mr. Sollers? That was just, I wanted to kind of get a little bit of a broad overview for the council in terms of what's going on.
And whoever can answer that knows, I guess. So if they get a substance evaluation and they're gonna go to VOA, for example, or anyplace else, does the city have to pay for that too? Or we're done at the incarceration part, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Often, insurance companies will cover that if you're insured. So for those individuals that are insured, if you're eligible for Medicaid, I think Medicaid does cover it. Most of them, it's covered through the state, and that's part of the reason for some of the long wait periods, is because there's
They're full.
the general beds, that if you're paying, you can just get there. Or if you have a
If
private
you're on
payer,
Medicaid, you're not gonna get as, yeah.
yeah, it takes longer.
They limit
if
their
it's-
population to X% of each or whatever, yeah. Okay.
Yes. So that's where a lot of that waiting area comes from, waiting time comes from. But no, the city does not actually pay for treatment.
Your Honor.
Go ahead.
So I had a question. So you say that it's hard to get an evaluator to the jail to do the evaluation. Is that the same for tribal members? Is it hard to get an evaluator there to do one for a tribal member?
From what I've been hearing, yes. I knew that Fremont Counseling went into the jail. The new company may go into the jail, but those were the only ones that were willing to go any longer there. I know there were at one point, I mean, virtually most everybody would go in and do evaluations, and for whatever reason, I can't tell you, it's their choices, they just aren't doing it anymore.
Thank
I,
you.
I think it's staffing. That's my impression, is just they,
Too busy.
yeah, you're talking about going to the jail. So that's, if you're based out of Riverton, you're driving to Lander, which is an hour. And then you're getting there, and then it takes some time to get arranged to get in there. And I think that's part of it. I know when we talked about this with the DUI task force, that was some of the discussion with staffing. Yeah.
So, and I'm just throwing this out here. So between the entire community and the county that uses the Fremont County Jail, wouldn't we be ahead financially to hire our own evaluator so that we had a full-time one at the jail? Because it sounds like there's enough work there to keep them busy. You know, that might be something that if we could reduce jail sentences by enough and get them into treatment, that might pay for an evaluator.
It's an interesting point. I mean, if we
And
were-
then the next question, of course, is, are there facilities that can do inpatient treatment? And how do we increase that capacity so that we have the ability to put people somewhere to get some help? Which then insurance, Medicaid, whatever, help pay for, and it would not be on the city's nickel.
One issue that we always had on the Solutions Committee was the number of places that people can go to get treatment. It's not a lot. So that's a real challenge. Even if you could get an evaluation, you still have to try to get someone into a facility.
Well, and one of the interesting things that's happened with the state in terms of, we are a part of CWCC, so they've separated the state out in terms of inpatient treatment facilities, in terms of districts. CWCC, which is in Casper, is one. We're in that district. Inpatient treatment can also be had in Sheridan. We also have Cody. We also have Cheyenne. And I think that's about it.
Does Rock Springs have one?
Yes, Rock Springs does too. Yeah, because we have Southwest over there. And so that's difficult too. And one of the things we've talked about is if Riverton had an inpatient treatment facility, that could be incredible. It would make it much easier to get people there. There is the demand there. With the model, though, that the state is doing, I don't see them funding something when we're in that area for Casper. It's kind of like the community college. The funding that would be for Teton County, CWC is the college for Teton and Fremont County. So that's kind of that, they wouldn't build a new community college in Teton County because
Already
CWC
have services.
takes care of it, yeah.
So those are state-operated facilities then?
Yes, well, they receive state funding for state individuals who are receiving treatment, for state patients.
Okay,
So whether they're state-operated or not, those are places where you can go to receive treatment and the state will pay.
okay.
Your Honor, was gonna kind of leave this towards the end, but I guess since we're on the topic, the Job Corps Center is facing not being non-operational soon, I think. And I've been told that the city will likely assume that property and that building. I think it's a perfect opportunity and use to consider using that facility as an in-treatment or an inpatient treatment facility and mental health facility. I think it has the potential to have some great economic growth. I think for job creation, it's a perfect time to have cultural change, extend a genuine hand to the tribes and work with them, the Department of Interior. I think there's funding out there to make that happen without having to rely on the state. I think it's huge. I think that's, not only would it help our community, it could help surrounding communities. And I really think that that's something that we should explore. I know that there's other entities and things that are looking at the use of it, but when we look at it as a whole, we have to be making decisions that keep our citizens safe and what best benefits the community. And I think that's something that we should seriously look at.
Yeah, if that became a point where that location were vacated and all of a sudden the city is having to figure out what we're going to do with the space.
As a long-term goal,
Yeah,
is what I'm,
You still gotta find somebody to run it.
yeah.
And
So,
people.
I mean, and pay for it. I guess that's the challenge.
I think that's where we extend a hand to the tribes. They already have White Buffalo Recovery Center. They know what they're doing. They have the expertise. They have the ability to do that through the Department of Interior, through other resources. They could participate in the cost that it would take. And I looked it up. It's between $500,000 to $700,000 to start a 30-bed facility for inpatient services for addiction. And that is without the building.
Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
The trick is, I think whoever runs that's got to be able to accept the entire population, not just
Absolutely.
a portion of the population.
Absolutely.
And I'm not saying that isn't there's plenty out there for everybody, I guess, but, and I think, I mean, the facility, we want to make sure that facility doesn't just sit mothballed, so, I mean, that's something I think we keep in mind long-term. To me, and I'm sure, I assume legally they can't make it to where they can't just get up and walk out, because I know that's part of the problem, is when they get into one of these facilities, they can just say, okay, I'm tired of it, I'm leaving. And that's, to me, that's one of the problems is, well, then they're gonna leave because they're gonna wanna go have a drink or do whatever. And so, I don't know what we need to do legally, but to me, if we could have an inpatient facility that had the ability to say, okay, you have to stay here for 6 months and follow the program, without the ability to just walk out whenever you're having a bad day, I think that's what it needs. That would be entirely better than just this. And that's the problem we had with VOA is we would get them in there and they would say, well, we're going to evaluate them. Well, then they would just leave the next day after they got through their little process.
I actually,
Part of the issue with that is, generally speaking, most of these treatment centers that you have around the state are not lockdown facilities.
Right.
If you leave, of course, it could be something you could be held in contempt of court if the judge says you have to go there and stay there. To whatever extent, that's a threat for people at times, right? I mean,
could they be charged with escape if it's a court-ordered facility?
no, we've gone down that road a little bit. What I would say, though, is this. There is a possibility, and this is one that we kind of discussed a little bit early on, a couple of years ago, and had some discussion about, I don't know if it was with the council or not. There are community reentry facilities, is what they're called, CRCs, We've got a couple of those around the state. Generally speaking, they provide intensive outpatient treatment. They do not provide inpatient treatment. However, if you have one, it's the equivalent of being in custody if you were to leave. So when you see something on the news that said somebody ran away from the Casper Reentry Center, or that's what we're talking about. It's something where they can leave, they can go to work, they come back. Their lives are very regimented, but if they leave, they can be charged with escape, which the difference between escape and contempt is 6 months possibly for contempt, 3 years, 5 years for escape,
3, I think.
3 years, I think, for escape, and it's a felony. So,
Which
that's a,
we don't have to pay.
that's true. But I guess the point is, you could do something, if you were to have an inpatient treatment center, and you had it as a lockdown facility, if it were something that you could get the state to get behind that, it has to be run by the Department of Corrections, which we already have a Department of Corrections run facility here in the Honor Farm. I don't know that
They've
we'd
got a
necessarily.
lot of ground.
They do. But anyway, it's an interesting idea, and it's something that we had discussed that wouldn't be a bad idea to continue to discuss going forward, is the possibility of a reentry center or something like that.
I think we need to include in it, though, not only just substance and alcohol abuse help, but mental health help. We lack facility and treatments here in Riverton. And it's a revolving door, and it's going to continue to be a revolving door until we take big steps to correct it. And we all sit in these seats to be able to make those decisions. And I think the particulars could be knocked out through discussion and committees and things like that, but I am absolutely in favor of exploring that idea. Long-term solution. Absolutely in favor of exploring it.
And the reality is, kind of like Mr. Solers was saying, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink. If you have a horse that's ready to drink and you don't have water for him, that horse is just going to keep going about its day. And you know what I mean? You've got to have the perfect timing for someone who's ready for change, and you've got the change there available. And I worry that we sometimes find that there's people in this position where they are wanting to change, but either because of delays in getting a substance abuse evaluation, delays in getting to treatment, whatever the delays might be, we lose that kind of magic moment where they might have been ready to turn their lives around. Not that I'm saying that, if it's a real change, obviously it's going to stay. But for some people, you want to be able to strike while the iron's hot. You want to be able to get in there and say, hey, let's get treatment figured out for you when they are motivated for it. And some people sitting in jail for 180 days, they lose their motivation. Some people sitting in jail for 180 days, they gain motivation. It just depends on the person.
Your Honor. Oh, Mike, did you have something?
Go ahead.
Oh, this is more of a question for Kyle because I don't remember and I've been driving for the last 5 hours. What are what do state statutes say about formation of a district? We can have hospital districts, we can have special improvement districts, can you have a mental health district or a substance abuse district? Or
Your Honor,
Go ahead.
I'll attempt to answer that. From a high level, any special district has to be enabled by state statute. The statute currently that exists today enables several special districts. It doesn't enable all special districts. For example, the ambulance special district was just recently enabled through legislation, and they have different provisions related to it versus other special districts. And so we could do some research as it relates to the possibility with existing statute for a special district as it relates to mental health care. Or we can work with legislators if it doesn't exist now to see if it is something that could be added into the statute. I hope that answers your question.
Perfect, thank you. The reason I bring it up is just looking at potential funding, and this is obviously worst-case scenario, if Job Corps does get mothballed, that is an enormous facility. I mean, bigger than any of us think right now. I mean, it's enormous, and it's gonna cost a lot of money. And so if we have some funding mechanism, I mean, it's a perfect location, but it's gonna take a lot of money. Or could we build our own facility and have a Fremont County treatment facility? Because we have special needs, clearly. We have very special, very unique to the state, to the region. I don't know of any other areas in the Rocky Mountain West that have as many issues as we do here. And I work all up and down the Rocky Mountain West.
Yeah.
So something needs to change. And if we could form a district, have a funding mechanism, that's a direction.
The rural healthcare district defines it broadly, can provide for the establishment and operation of healthcare facilities, programs, and services.
There you go.
2 to 4 mills, it's not a lot.
That's not a lot.
But Mr. Bailey?
The other thing is it's been 6 or 7 years ago when I was on the hospital board, the mental health regulations that come down from the federal government make it very, very challenging. I mean, they have basically forced the hospitals out of the mental health business because of the cost of managing those folks. I know that the 13 beds that used to be over at Pine Ridge in Lander, they were going to have to spend over $1 million a room to upgrade that facility to be able to keep people with mental health problems in there. And the only other solution was to be 24-hour monitored maintenance of those folks, one-on-one. So for every person in a bed, they would have to have somebody standing there watching them 24/7. And so this is a very, very expensive road to go down. Now, I'm not saying there isn't room out there, but I don't think the federal government's very cooperative because they basically forced everybody out of that business. And that's, in my opinion, one of the reasons we have in the United States a lot of mentally health people, homeless, living under bridges and whatever, because there's no place to put them, because they've made it to where you can't run one of them. And so, yeah, I think it's grand what we're talking about, but, you know, if you have a lockdown facility for mental health and drug addiction and alcohol addiction, I think they're gonna put them in the same, you know, the same sort of basket that the mental health facilities are. And it's gonna be extremely challenging to run one of those facilities, just the pure cost of it.
Potentially even tighter if it's a
Right.
lockdown facility.
Yeah. Well, when you go to, let's say you, somebody's mind is wandering and we have a vacant building up there across from the high school because of lack of attendance. That building could not be converted to a mental health issue.
Right.
Because of the structural instability that is built into a normal room. You cannot take and convert your house into something like that. It's just financially impossible for Lander to do what they were supposed to do. They gotta build a whole new building.
Right. It was gonna cost $1 million a room to do it.
So
That's $1 million you don't have.
Yeah.
we did have, at one point, a residential treatment center committee that had looked at that and had been, it wasn't something that it was, well, we were on. I don't,
On
I-
solution.
did I start it? Or did it,
I think so.
I don't remember.
It's been a long.
been a little while
time,
ago.
I'm not sure.
But it was something, yes, it was something we explored. We explored it in 2019. COVID got in the way. We had some good people that were interested in it. It wasn't really the right time. But that is something that we could explore if we wanted to look at some possibilities of whether it's lockdown or not, but inpatient treatment, mental health district, substance abuse district, whatever it might look like, it would be something that would be a good thing to consider perhaps more offline and see where we can go there. I think, in my opinion, when we started talking about it in 2019, it was something that we needed then and we need now. There's a lot of demand. One of the things that's unique is getting transportation, somebody to and from somewhere like that creates issues. I think you're less likely to have people that don't show up for day one of treatment if you're not having to have a transportation issue and it's just going from the jail or wherever to somewhere here. So,
Your Honor, again, I think if the city and/or the county altogether figured out a transportation to get somebody to treatment, that's still gonna save us all a lot of money and
Agree.
make sure they show up, other than they can walk out the next day and they gotta just find a ride home, but.
I think it needs to be a court-ordered inpatient treatment facility. These people lack the ability to make decisions that are in their best interest. And the goal is to get these people to be contributing members of society again. They are burdened with addiction because of traumatic experiences over the years that have led them to whatever condition that they're in. They simply lack the ability to make the choice and stick with it. And unless it's court-ordered and we have those facilities at our fingertips, we're going to see the same thing over and over again. And I would really like to see a shift at some point, our thought process to what could go right versus what's going wrong, or what could go wrong. They're big steps, and yeah, it's costly, and it takes time and it takes effort, and there's a lot of stuff to work out in the process, but there's people out there willing to work on it. There's people willing to sit on a committee and come up with ideas and look into funding options and see it through. And it's an option to consider.
all right, so that's kind of what we started on. We could just go person to person here, just with any thoughts to add to the discussion, or where we want to go from there. Councilman Bailey?
Your Honor, thank you. And again, from discussions I've had with people and the stuff I've seen, a lot of this challenges that we have are what we would call frequent flyers, okay? And I don't know how, I don't know the names, I don't know that, but I know all of our law enforcement officers know the names. They know these folks by name, and they know where they live or hang out or whatever. But we've got these people that are frequently public intoxication, theft, all kinds of stuff like that. And the trick becomes, how do you punish somebody that lives under the bridge and doesn't have any money? It's like you can't take away anymore because they don't have anything. Okay, but it's still, to me, it's socially unacceptable for some of the behaviors that they perform. And if they want to go live under the bridge and not steal and not be staggering into the street and getting run over and all those kind of, I'm okay if they want to go live under the bridge, okay? But they can't be impeding normal organized society in the process. And so I don't know how we find a way to somehow make some of these crimes cumulative and add up to a point where, after you've had so many public intoxication arrests and/or theft and/or, that this becomes a more stringent punishment for what they do. And again, we don't want to put them in jail and have to pay for it. And I know we've sort of tried this in the past and got our little hand slapped by the warm and fuzzy people out there, but.
Well, and I think to a certain extent that already does happen. So when I first came on the council, public intoxication, for example, was only punishable by a fine. Correct. And then we made a change where that was punishable by jail. And the judge already, the people that are sitting in jail for 60 to 90 to 120 to 180 days, they're ones that we've seen a lot. would you see something like, so what you might normally do with something like that is you do a change of mandatory minimum. So you'd say if you have so many public intoxication charges, convictions, you have a mandatory minimum time you would serve, but
Well, and the other thing, it has to happen at the state level.
Right.
But you talked about the thefts. On your fifth and subsequent thefts, they then become felonies. And so you are enhancing the penalties. But because our jurisdiction is misdemeanors within the city, that would have to come from basically the state level. They would say after so many, it becomes a felony.
Okay.
it's because we already have available for public intoxication, which is probably by far the greatest single charge that our officers end up writing through the municipal court. I would say. That's how it was when I was the city prosecutor.
I think that's right, but I think the other thing that you see, and not necessarily the public intox, but alcohol in general, plays a big part in the other crimes that are committed within the city. Most of your assaults, the assailant had consumed alcohol. A lot of the thefts, the person is also a PI at the time, and these guys would be better positioned to name off the crimes. But I think you'll find that a very high percentage of the collateral crime goes back to the person was intoxicated or at least had consumed alcohol and therefore lost his rational behavior.
So, and I'm not saying that we can't do that. I guess what I'm saying is in terms of the city, the municipal jurisdiction, we already have for public intoxication up to 180 days. You can force the judge's hand by making it a mandatory minimum.
And I guess I'm talking more about the theft and assault and all those things that sort of are either the primary or the secondary cause of the incident that the police have to deal with. Okay, it's usually not just somebody sitting on a park bench drunk being a nice guy is why they get arrested. I mean, there's usually multiple things tied into some of these scenarios, I think. And so to me, I think we need to be aggressive in prosecuting those. And if there is more punishment for having 6, let's say, than there is having 1, then if these guys are frequent flyers, then we need to make sure they get to 6 so that something, somehow people gotta be smacked good or they don't get it, okay? I don't know.
Councilman, if I may, Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Saunders.
I think in practice, that's exactly what happens to our municipal court. If it's your first public intox, you're gonna get a fine. If it's your second public intox, you're gonna get a little higher fine, plus have to go get an evaluation. When it becomes your 43rd time, you already have a bunch of time suspended, the judge will impose that, and then they go to looking for treatment for you. So I think, while it's not written in our ordinances, I think in practice, Judge McKee does exactly what you're saying. The more times you do it, the more severe punishment.
Well, I was just kind of envisioning we could go right to left, left to right.
You're going to want to
Wherever.
start on that side because I got a long list I'll visit about.
Councilman Carr, anything that you've gotten from feedback from community members or any thoughts that you have? I kind of envisioned we'd have a couple of things that might get thrown out in terms of broad strokes, like I was saying, and then we can explore more down the road, and we could kind of have a little bit of a discussion at the end in terms of which are the ones that we've thrown out that we think as a council would be good to explore.
Thank you, Your Honor. I deeply appreciate the discussion revolving primarily around treatment, because we know throughout history, we can't arrest ourselves out of the situation and the specificity of the problem that we have. We can't afford it. We simply cannot afford it. I have been, one constituent reached out. They had had a negative experience on the Riverwalk here recently as just about a week ago. And it seemed to be a lighting issue, and I would agree. There's a lot that can be done for public safety with proper lighting, proper cameras, or even if it's perceived surveillance. And to look at the individual's comment revolved around trying to find funding for additional lighting and trail connectivity. There is state funding through the SS4A Safe Streets for All that maybe we can tweak, or have that come out of the feasibility study, that lighting and/or surveillance or more connectivity. The individual felt a little trapped whilst they were on their walk. And
I do think I just had some community members that caught me right before we started today, talking about funding near their intersection on South Broadway and Jefferson. And I think we kind of discount sometimes the importance of lighting, but there's been a lot of studies done, for example, if you leave on your, even just porch lights in a neighborhood at night, it tends to deter crime. And surveillance as well. I will say we sometimes run into issues where, there might be some difficulty in proving an offense or something like that. Surveillance can help with that, help support things that might be reported by individuals who are victims of crime. So there's the deterrent effect. There's also the effect of being able to make it so prosecution might be easier down the road. I know we had talked in particular about City Park and had approved funding there for surveillance. Do we have surveillance in the whole park now, or where are we at with that? I know we just barely got surveillance put up at our parking area there downtown.
Yes, Your Honor, council members. The downtown parking lot, just last week, our IT team was working on those cameras. The cameras that were purchased for City Park are still being worked on for the install. And then as a point of information, there are 3 cameras at the Riverwalk currently.
That's good. It might be good to offline kind of find out a little bit more about where and see if there's things we can do there. But I do think we had discussed, for example, lighting near City Park. We had talked about on the south side there, that there had been folks that had talked about crossing that street there near the Napa, just how dark that gets.
yeah.
And we had talked about the possibility of using funding from the Wyoming Community Gas funds that we receive from them every year for that. And that's something we could revisit there. But then the Riverwalk, that's another good idea in terms of improved lighting.
Your Honor, I wonder if Kathy Klein, with all of her
Work she's
work
put.
she's done down there, she might actually know something about that.
You may
Well, I
have
think
quite a bit of
she probably
insight.
does, yeah.
That was about all I had at this point. There was one other, I did want to say on surveillance. And Chief, this might be a better question for you. It's incredibly difficult to man a camera 24/7. Are there any advancement being made with AI that you can have it watch and then just give a notification, hey, something's going on that looks suspicious?
Mayor,
Interesting idea. Go ahead, Chief.
so we will be coming before council in the near future on some technology upgrades that we'll be presenting. But ultimately, a camera is only good if you have somebody watching it. And after the fact of, oh, yes, we did see this occur, eventually possibility of AI being there to notify of something going on. But, you know, with the limits of what gets streamed into dispatch currently, you have the staff manning the phones, watching the cameras, so there is currently limited capability out of the center right now. But
I also know that with the new park cameras in the downtown parking lot, that they do have the ability to notice people walking. I'm not sure what exactly is going to be set up with that, but I was told that there could be a notification, or even the camera could have the ability to pop up on our screens that we do watch the cameras on. But I believe those are the only ones that have that capability right now.
But Mayor, there will be, like I said, a presentation coming up in the near future on some technology that's available to us that we'd like to move forward on.
Well, there's definitely a strength in being able to capture a crime that's being committed, and that's best case scenario. We'd want to be able to do that. But there's also the ability to be able to capture something after it's been committed and be able to have it be something that's recording and be able to look back at it. If we find out the next day something had happened in this location, we can look at the camera and we can see what it captured on the camera. So AI is a great thought for that, and I'm glad that you're kind of on top of trying to get to some new technologies there. I do hesitate to require our dispatchers to look at any more screens. I don't know if you've been to dispatch lately. And I say this because we have, of course, our lead dispatcher here, Ms. Nelson, and as it stands, you know, when we have people that are in the holding areas there, they're keeping an eye there, they're keeping an eye on a lot of different things. So AI being able to make some of that easier would be good.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Cameras are a good deterrent. I mean,
I agree.
now, does that just move them from the city downtown parking lot to the rails to trails? I don't, you can't have cameras everywhere.
No.
This is not like CSI on TV where you just, get on your computer and check all this stuff out. I mean,
And you want safety, but you don't want 1984 either.
right, so.
I think
Your Honor.
cameras are great. I think they're a great deterrent. I think they're fantastic at capturing what's actually going on when they can, but I think the ultimate goal is to prevent it before it's recorded.
I agree.
Yeah, Your Honor, this might be an excellent time. I had a few calls about folks that had noticed the streetlights are out in their area. And I think it's worth mentioning that if you find, if people find that their streetlights are out, don't wait and then call the next day, God forbid something happened, but also, lighting deters a lot of crime. There's, like you said, huge studies that show that. But get the number of that pole, and you can record that, and then there's an app for Rocky Mountain Power, and you can send that in right away. It doesn't help to say that a street light's out on my street, I don't know which one it is. Tell me, so somebody has to go out there, get the number, and then in the daylight, try to figure out which one it is. It's very difficult unless, we get into winter months where you can start to figure that out. So I'll put a plug in for that, and I think that might be kind of helpful.
That is good to know.
Perfect.
We have, our polls are numbered. Not our days, our polls. Okay,
Days too.
yeah. Councilwoman Pearson Lewis?
Yeah, actually, that's good on the light. I had something stolen from my house last week outside, and my personal outdoor light was out. Yeah, so not good. And I did have a camera, but you couldn't see because the light was out. So, yeah. So anyway, good lesson learned. So treatment centers are really good. I'm a huge proponent of those. But I think the key is that they're for people that want to go in. That's when they succeed, is people have to want to go in order for them to succeed. But they do work when that happens. And they are fantastic. And there's a lot of research that backs that up, that when people want to enter And when we give them the option of that over, entering a prisons type situation, then that actually does succeed. So I like that option if that's what we're looking at as far as either or, and if it's for somebody that chooses that. So that's where I'm at, and I'm always, like, I second Eric on the lighting situation. There is a lot of that, and I hear a lot of that around town. So that's kind of a big thing. And again, what I dealt with this last week, so, yeah.
Okay?
If Paris can do it, so can.
That's right.
Your Honor, do we know what it costs? I know the streetlights we have along Federal and Main cost $10,000 a piece or something, but do we know what it costs for just to have Rocky Mountain Power or High Plains Power just put up a pole with a yard light kind of a thing?
We
I
just,
mean, I would assume it's far less expensive.
$100 a month. That's what it costs in my parking lot.
well, and I know that we had looked at it, the possibility of getting some poles over there near City Park, and if I recall correctly, it was somewhere in the realm of 3,000 per, was it 3,000 per?
Your Honor, we'll look into that data and verify it. Brenda's looking right now.
Because I know when we were looking at that, I think it was, whether it was last year or the year before, we had come up with, I think we were talking about spending 10,000, and we were saying if we did about 3 new poles, maybe it was 2,500. But we did have that quoted. Now, is that, there's a lot of different lights you could do, right? We could go put a little office lamp out there if you want. That, not saying that's the best option, but you could go from an office lamp to something that's decorative lighting and anywhere.
What about turning the lights on the skate park as they did, and that cost us $500 a month, and that lights up 3/4 of the park. They're already installed. All we have to do is pay the bill,
Flip them on, yeah.
and we've done that before.
I'm just saying, nothing fancy. I mean, wooden telephone pole with a light, one of those
Yeah,
security lights like they put out in the country. If you could put 20 of them in, probably for what one costs on Federal with the fancy green pole and the fancy bulbs and all that kind of stuff, right? I mean, I don't think we have to make this, the walk in Paris, but just needs to be lit and
Yeah.
clean and keep the brush down so that people aren't worried about somebody jumping out at them when they're walking down the walk path.
Just a
Effective
deterrent,
and economical.
Right?
and we don't need to see it from outer space.
Yeah.
We just want to have it light up, so,
If we can, that's a positive, but
well, yeah, I suppose.
it's a good thought, though. And I do think that in terms of discussion, and I appreciate you bringing it up, Councilman Carr, lighting is definitely something we can explore. I do know that we had someone who was discussing, not just in that area on the south side of the park, but they were saying actually on the, not just the south, but also if you go on the east side of the park, they were saying there's an area there where there just tends to be people that congregate there in the dark. And they might, they might have people that would be doored up next to each other talking there. And I think there could be a lot of deterrent there if you just had a light over there on the southeast side of the park. Mr. Butterfield?
Your Honor, I was just going to follow up. Mr. Toman was able to go through a few of the bid documents that he has, and I know Mr. Eggleston was also working on the idea as it related to surrounding City Park. That estimate ranging between 3,000 to 4,000 per light is pretty accurate. Obviously, it's dependent on where the power source is and the conduit run, but I think you can use that 3 to 4 as a pretty good estimate right now.
And I think of all the things that we could do and say as a part of our capital plan, so to speak, right? We have set in so many, how often we're going to replace this vehicle, how often we're going to replace this vehicle, how often do we need to replace this? I think not necessarily replacing the lights, but saying adding lights, so many a year, having that as a goal that we're going through and saying, okay, over the next 10 years, we want to have 20 more lights, whatever it might be. And saying, rather than making that all of them at once, which is an incredible expense, quick math would be what, $60,000 to $80,000? So if you did 2 of those, 3 of those a year, I think it could make a difference. And we could kind of do it in order of need, just the areas where we've had issues. I really appreciated, by the way, the city, we had someone who came in, brought up an area where they said, hey, this is an area we really need lighting. We got on it, we got it done pretty dang quick. I mean, within weeks, it was done.
If we're, excuse me, if we're adding locations, I did have a citizen reach out. The crosswalk on Riverview, where the speed limit's actually 40 miles per hour. Kids and walkers cross there. It's not lit. There's no indication. It's a dangerous area.
Which intersection was that, Karen?
Riverview, on Riverview and
Major?
Majors, I believe it is.
Oh,
It's a,
yeah.
Around,
it's,
yep.
it's an incredibly dangerous area, and that needs to be on the list as well.
Your Honor, as part of the Riverview Road reconstruction project, there is 5 new lights proposed to go in there, and that's where we just got the latest figure. Since about 2022, with all the projects coming up, we started to prioritize lighting. The Sunset project was the first one where we came in and then started to analyze the lights through there. Rocky Mountain Power helped a lot, and then they replaced a lot of lights through there. And then actually on Sunset and Broadway, they replaced 2 lights in that intersection, and the residents complained that they were too bright. So the new lights are quite a bit brighter, but we've scaled that down just a little bit to get the lumens right. And then the Riverview Road project will have updated lighting through it as well.
Sounds good.
And when does that start, Brendan? I'm sorry.
Well, you'll expect to see that bid opening here next meeting.
Good to know.
I guess as we go forward, then it might be good to say we'd want to have staff looking at that maybe citywide, where some areas where we can improve lighting, maybe encourage citizens to be reaching out to us about problem areas that they might be aware of. I know that's a bit of a heavy lift, but then having that turn into, like I said, something like a 10-year plan and being able to go from the ones that we see as significant, more significant, down to lesser significance as we go, having that on each of our budgets, I think could be a great way to handle
Yeah.
some of this.
Absolutely. Even lighting makes the corridors in and out of town look so much more put together as well. We spent over $500,000 in 2021 putting streetlights from the Holiday Inn out to Walmart, about 55 lights through there. And I think it improved quite a bit, that area, so.
Very well.
Okay, great discussion.
Your Honor?
Yes.
One more quick question. Do we have a drone available?
Your Honor, not currently, but we have the ability to contract that. I do know also other law enforcement entities have a drone, and that the chief is working with his command staff about what that could look like for our department as well.
And
When we did the tree study, they had a drone.
The reason I ask is I'm sure we don't have any night aerial imagery, and it would be nice to have some aerial imagery when the lights are on. I don't remember the FAA regulation if you can fly the drone at night. But it would be nice, because the dark spots would show up really well.
I bet you Eric Carr, not Eric Carr, geez.
Oh.
You. I bet Eric would know the answer to that. I was going to say Dean Peranto, he'd probably know the answer to that.
Yeah,
But you would know.
I can get a hold of one of our drone pilots too. They'll know.
Good thought. Mr. Bailey, you've already had a couple of things you've chimed in on. Did you have anything in particular that you wanted to bring up as thoughts? I guess we kind of started with you about the
Sort of
frequent
started with me,
flyers.
but
so-
yeah, I mean, that's the big one to me, is I think it needs to be uncomfortable to not follow the law in Riverton, Wyoming. And in my opinion, the more we get people when they first begin and make it painful, the less crime we're gonna have long-term. I have an example from my business where a long time ago, this has been 20, 25 years ago, I hired a person, obviously did not do enough background checking when I did. We caught them working at one of our convenience stores, and shoplifting, her and her children would come in and fill bags of stuff and leave, okay? So then we obviously fired her and tried to prosecute. When she got prosecuted, and I'm not picking on any prosecutors,
I
but,
wasn't here 20 years.
you know, they sort of gave her a smack on the wrist and said, you know, you shouldn't do that anymore, but, you know, she's got kids, and so we don't want to put her in jail, and then the kids will have to go on welfare and be in foster homes and, you know, all this stuff, okay? Time goes on. She went to work for another one of our ex-city council members and embezzled $30,000. And so, again, and then I found out, before she had worked for me, she was writing bad checks in Cody or someplace, I can't remember where she come from. So again, she got away with a small crime, she moved up, she came here, got away with a little bigger crime, went on, ended up getting into a crime big enough that, you know, it's more serious consequences. And so I think if they would have got smacked harder in the little crimes, they wouldn't have been there to commit the big crime. And I think that's true, you know. And so, and we're not protecting ourselves because when she was writing bad checks in Cody, they didn't prosecute. You know, I mean, and so then they don't get a record. Well, then if I search their record before I hire them, I don't know because they didn't get prosecuted. They just got a little, oh, if you just don't do it again for a year, we'll let you off. And you know, and I'm not picking on the legal system, I'm just saying, us not treating people that break the law severely, even if it's small, just comes back to bite us in the long term. And so I think we have to keep that in mind. And I know we got all kinds of precedents and all kinds of, you know, do-gooders out there trying to make sure we don't, you know, discriminate against anybody, which I agree, we don't want to discriminate, but we're going to discriminate against the people that break the law and don't do what they're supposed to. That's not discrimination.
Well, to the extent it is, it's not a protected class.
Right.
So. Councilwoman Borders.
Just to pigtail off of what Mike said, I think we do need to make it incredibly uncomfortable. We need to do whatever we're capable of within our means to hold people accountable. And I'm all for looking into other options. I've often talked about bringing back the Solutions Committee. I think it's something that we really probably should look into. And I'll just leave that alone. I have had some constituents reach out to me regarding traffic speeds through neighborhoods. And one even asked about installing a speed bump. I know we can't do that on every single street that we have, but it's probably something we need to look at because people, and I hate to put kids on the spot, but I have a kid in my neighborhood that he goes 40 from his house to mine, and he's 2 houses down.
Got the zoomies.
And he's hitting 40, like, whew.
Yeah.
And, you know, it makes me want to smack him, honestly. But I know I can't do that. So we need to look for other alternatives.
Smacking, I don't think is listed amongst the possible penalties.
No. Then I'm going to end up being in trouble, and we don't want that, so.
Technically corporal punishment.
She's got to be a guardian or custodian.
Oh, there you go. Sorry, Carla.
Too old for that, darn it. And then the other thing I would like to say is lighting. Lighting deters a lot of crime, and I'm for, you know, if we can light it up, I'm happy with it. I think the thing that's a little bit unnerving to me is that we want lights. Well, we want lights, but they can't be too bright, you know? And to me, I'm like, light it up. I can close my curtains and I can sleep at night. And meanwhile, the thieves and everybody else, they're gonna go out in the country where it's dark. Sorry, country people, I'm not trying to push them out there.
No, we are.
Nobody took.
But I'm all for lighting. If we can light up the skate park for the rest of the, up until winter time, I think that would be great. Because naughty people don't like it in the light. They like it where it's dark.
definitely increases your chance of being able to get away with something.
Yes, yes, it does. It's like I've made this comparison before, cockroaches scatter when the lights come on. I don't think I'm far off.
I think that's a good.
Analogy.
Good analogy.
I was going to ask you, Mr. Sollers, going to the speeding in particular, the traffic unit that we have we got a lot more speeding tickets that you've been dealing with at the city court?
There has been an increase. And actually, I noticed that on just the last docket we had, I think there were 6 speeding citations. And before that, there may have been 1 or 2. Part of the problem is, I don't know the full extent, because if the person just comes in, pays their fine and forfeits it, they never make it to the docket.
You think-
So again, that maybe would be a Megan.
So you might see 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, but there's more like 100 for all we would know. Just
Correct.
because it'd be, Ms. Harris, do you think you'd have the answer to that?
Your Honor, I don't have the exact number, but I can certainly tell you that my court clerk has communicated to me that there has been a recent uptick in traffic citations through the court. Definitely. I would guess within the last couple months, but I can certainly get a confirmation from her.
I know I've had folks that have talked about speeding in neighborhoods, and I will say, patrolling in neighborhoods is huge. And I think that that's something that our officers believe too. I know that it would be easy to just say, I'm going to patrol Federal and Main, right? You could just do that all night, and you could probably find a lot of different people speeding and stuff like that. But getting into some of the neighborhoods, I could see definitely being a benefit and would deter some of these speeders. It might not be a bad idea. I don't know to what extent. We've had people bring up specific neighborhoods that they have a habitual speeders there that maybe they could let law enforcement know about. That's, I mean, I think we'd probably be willing to take that feedback and see what we can do, especially with the traffic unit that can be more responsive like that and get to problem areas. Chief,
Mayor? Yeah.
you're smiling. You probably want to say something, I imagine.
Thank you, Mayor. For those who don't know, we did start back up our traffic unit. One of the officers came back from much-needed vacation today, and I think he already got 1 DUI tonight and a few citations. If you recall, I think a couple of months ago, I went for council about purchasing a new patrol car, and we're able to get 2 for the price of 1, 2 Chargers. Those Chargers were upfitted before we got them, so there was very minimal equipment that was needed to put on them, radar, decals. So you will now see, as of this last week, traffic enforcement blue Chargers, and those are the 2 members of our traffic unit that'll be going out. And we would welcome, if there's any concerns in any specific neighborhoods, to call us, and we can put them on their list to pay some extra attention to.
Your Honor, I know when we were having the saturation patrols, if I remember correctly, the other occurrences in town, domestics and other incidents dropped dramatically, like going from 11 or 12 to 1 or 2. And so I think having the traffic patrol out and a lot of police presence, I think it pays huge dividends overall, because, again, people just don't do things if they know the police are coming through their neighborhood, or, you know, we aren't going to speed, you know, nobody speeds through Shoshone, right? Riverton ought to be the same way. Everybody ought to know you better follow the speed limit or you're going to get a ticket, and it's not going to be nice. And probably people that have to pay speeding tickets are a lot more likely to pay than people that have public intoxication tickets.
Well, and I will say, it's not that nobody speeds through Shoshone. People still speed through Shoshone.
They're
It's
making
just
how
the
much a year
local
on it?
people have kind of figured out not to speed through Shoshone. Because there's a lot of speeding that still goes on there. And it's funny because they get reputation is kind of not, not, well, let's put it this way. They don't tend to stop people for the typical like 5 over. It's the people that they're stopping that are going like 10 or 15 or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a good point.
I apologize, I forgot when it was my turn, but I just saw an email that I received from a constituent again. And I wanted to bring this up because he makes a good point. And because I'm an engineer, I tend to think in black and white. Solution is obvious. If we just eliminate alcohol in Fremont County, right?
Oh,
Clearly, that's not gonna work.
Yeah.
Obviously. So, but this might be more of a question for Rick. Do municipalities have the ability to add stipulations to liquor sales? Or is that completely controlled through state statute? And what I mean is, and I'm gonna use a little bit of hyperbole, so give me some room. Can we make people buying alcohol jump through more hoops?
That might be a good
You know,
question, too.
yes,
Go ahead, Mr. Solers.
I think it was several years ago. The idea was put forth to have the liquor dealers were prohibited from, the proposed ordinance would have prohibited them from selling to chronic alcoholics on a list. And that met with a ton of resistance from the liquor dealers because they felt that they were becoming an arm of government in the enforcement. There were other people who were already barred from their establishment that would give somebody money to go in and buy from them. And ultimately, that failed. So I think there are certain things we can add, but it's fairly tough to add those. Because of the ramifications and because who ultimately has to enforce that law, not the police, but it's the liquor store dealers. And I think that was one of their main concerns with that ordinance.
Just a quick follow-up, and the constituent that wrote specifically mentioned drive-up. And I know when my wife and I got here, she grew up in another part of the country that had much stricter alcohol regulations, and she was shocked that we had drive-through liquor stores, absolutely shocked. And
she hasn't been to North Carolina then, has she? Where they have bear-throughs.
yeah, oh, yeah, yes. So, can we look at something like that as far as, when I say jumping through hoops to get it, if we're handing it to them in their vehicle, clearly, if they go into the store, they're gonna come back out, get in their vehicle, but if we're handing it to them in their vehicle, it's something, I don't know. So,
I think there is the ability for local entities to put restrictions on license holders. The license ultimately belongs to the city, and we're issuing it to others. The state tells us how many we can have. We can certainly be more strict than state statute, but not more lenient. And so I'd have to look at an example, but I think there are places that have banned drive-through liquor sales.
thank you.
And I will say, we have requirements already in our code for them. Not that I'm saying they're extremely stringent, but, for example, no part of the area used for orders, delivery, or making payment shall be more than 40 feet distanced from the licensed building, shall be well lighted, subject to inspection by the governing body which issued the license at any and all times. No walls or screens can be positioned or situated so as to interfere with observing and checking the part of the area used for orders, delivery, and payment. No order shall be accepted from a person under 21 years old. I mean, we have a couple of rules there. There's not a ton of them. I will say, I feel like drive-through liquor, the difficulty I have with it is being able to properly be able to determine whether somebody's too intoxicated to be serving alcohol to them. That's where I feel like there could be difficulty,
Which is already against
which
rules.
is against the city ordinance that you can't serve to anyone who's obviously intoxicated. So I feel like that would be difficult for a person, I feel like it'd be difficult for me. That being said, I will say, I don't know if this has happened since the chief's been here or any of our 2 lieutenants have been here, but maybe since Ms. Nelson's been here. We have had quite a few DUIs that have been reported by people in drive-throughs for food. They'll be like, a guy just came through the drive-through and he seems hammered. Call the police. Police get there sometimes before he even gets his food, depending on where it is. And we figure it out. But, so, it's worthwhile discussion, and I think it's one that we could maybe even talk about at our
Roll into the, yeah.
October one. It'd be a worthwhile thing to look at and see, maybe to see what other cities do, so that when we discuss it, we can compare. Are there other cities in Wyoming that either ban drive-up liquor or have other rules for drive-up liquor that we might want to consider?
Sure.
Did you have something else to add, Mr. Bailey?
I guess we just need to be careful that we're not just creating a bunch more rules that really don't affect these frequent flyers that are causing all the problems, okay? You know, we can tell Walmart and Smith's to quit selling donuts, but this is not, we're still gonna have some fat people. I mean,
That's not nice to say about.
I know, I'm one of them. But I mean,
You just
you
went
know,
there.
you can start restricting all kinds of stuff and saying, well, you can only eat vegetables and you can do that, but guess what? That's not gonna cure, that's not the source of the problem, so I guess, you know, the 99.9% of people that responsibly buy alcohol and consume it shouldn't be punished for the 1/10 of 1% that go out and drive drunk or public intox or whatever. We need to punish the people that are intoxicated or driving drunk. And the more we can figure out ways to catch them, the better. But, you know, we talked about it when we changed the times that you could have the liquor license on Sunday. Well, I don't know if our intoxication rate has jumped dramatically since now you can buy alcohol at 9 o'clock in the morning instead of noon. I have no idea, but I seriously doubt it. You know, so we gotta be careful we don't just create a bunch of stuff that's more minutia for us to all deal with that doesn't help the problem.
It's an interesting point, and it's a good point, because to what extent would that make a difference? I'm not sure.
I just have one more point to piggytail off Mike, and then Kyle can go. So,
Perfect, okay.
just thinking in my head, I think there are 3 establishments that have drive-up liquor sales in Riverton. And I agree with Mike. I don't think it's fair to trample on everyone's rights, because we have a fraction of the population. And I don't really believe that that's where it is. I don't believe that they're driving through the liquor drive-up. We may have a few, but the frequent flyers, no, I don't think they're driving through the drive-through.
That's a good point.
And I don't want to make our laws so crazy like where Eric's wife came from, where it's reached the point of being ridiculous.
It was not California, by the way. I
No,
think.
it's not California. I know where it is, but I'm not going to say. That's all I have to say.
All right, Mr. or Councilman Larson, anything you have to add that we haven't already discussed?
I'm ready.
You're ready. All right, go ahead.
First off, whomever talked about drive-up liquor, I wonder how that person got to Walmart, got out of their car and drove back and picked up the liquor, put it in, bought it, and carried it back to their car. What is the difference there? Secondly, I think we have more police officers than we previously have had. And we need to judiciously not tell the patrolman where to be, but there are certain times of the day that they should be somewhere close to a school. And that time could be noon, that time could be in the morning, and that time could be in the afternoon. And that simple presence would help. Thirdly, if your lights are out, fix them. She's not looking up.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. But complain about being robbed.
Well, I didn't realize it until the next morning, by the way.
Don't blame the
I was
victim.
like,
Anyway, if.
that's right.
If my wife were watching tonight, I have a fence around the yard, and I have gone down to the, used to be there on North Federal where they repaired tailpipes. And I've mounted lights on all of my gates that turn on at night and turn off. They're all solar powered. And my wife harangues the living out of me, but when she drives in at night, it's all lit, and it's lit everywhere. So anyway, lights. I was, a long time ago, I worked out at Koch Industries. And I figured out that if you had lights, you could work at night anywhere you wanted, as long as you could see. So I put that lights on, and I had a environmental engineer come out, and he was gonna inspect the property for the proper amount of lights. And I said, how was your flight in? And he got mad at me. He said, hell, I could see that plane from my middle seat. So the subject is light really is a safety. Now, the pole in my office area, I discontinued because I've got a rather large sign that lights up my parking lot and everything around it. In fact, I've got it on as high as I can turn it, and that saves me from broken windows and et cetera. So those three things: light, police officers in school areas, especially 16th, where there is no stop sign from Sunset to Webwood Road. Last thing. I go through Shoshone every Friday afternoon, and I return every Saturday. And there's not one time I go through Shoshone in the afternoon and coming in the afternoon on the next day that I don't see Shoshone helping visitors to what the speed limit is. I think that we have, I've counted the number of cars pulled over that our police are doing, so kudos. Write them up. New books every day. Fill them up, boys. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. All right, Councilwoman Johnson, we're ready for you.
You guys
Make a
love
motion to
preparing. I'm sorry.
You don't need to be sorry.
No, I'm not sorry.
I-
I'm not sorry.
I knew coming into this, because one of the reasons why we did this was at your request. So I knew coming into this that you had a lot of different things you were wanting to talk about. So one of the reasons I wanted to end with you is because if we were able to get some of the discussion from some of the other council members out previously, they're not feeling like they're repeating something you've said.
Absolutely.
And so, anyway,
I think it's been good discussion. I thank you for making the work session happen. I think it's been long overdue. And I'm hopeful that we can get some good out of this and go into a good direction. And whether we use the ideas that are presented tonight or we go with something different, we're trying something rather than sitting on our hands and watching it all happen. I think by being transparent about some of the things, and giving the community some numbers, and information that we're dealing with, they have a better understanding of the decisions that we make, why we don't make them. And I also think that understanding how we got to where we're at and the causes and the contributing factors plays a key role in how we deal with it. And there's a lot of contributing factors from what I could come up with. Over the years, we've had multiple changes in administration. We've had a couple different police chiefs. We've had different policy changes, and I think that leads to a lot of confusion sometimes. Do we or do we not do this? Or we used to do it, and now we don't do it. And I think things fall through the cracks like that, and that's where we've come up. For instance, in he gave me the sheet. In fiscal year 10, 11, 12, 13, clear up until 2015, we were spending in between 74 and 83, 85,000 to house prisoners. And I think it's important for the public to know now, this year, fiscal year 25, we've already spent $131,404, and we're 17.5% through our fiscal budget. The highest year to house prisoners was fiscal year 23, and that was $242,330. It's a stark difference from 10. It shows gradually how we've increased in criminal activity and the cost to house them. And every study, all the data shows that jailing these individuals is not the answer. 2 years ago, I stood here and said, throw them all in jail. I think Councilman Bailey and Borders are correct. We need to hit them hard on their first charge. Set a precedence. We need to go into the schools. We need to be educating kids. There is no fear of consequences in this town any longer. They have gotten by with it because of changed policies, or we're afraid this is going to happen, or we don't have them. And that's the biggest issue, really, is there is no funding to house these people. I asked for some statistics, and I asked for 4 specifically, and I want to thank staff for running these. Between August of last year and August of this year, we had 279 calls for assaults alone. That resulted in 142 arrests. We had 655 calls of intoxicated persons, resulting in 438 arrests. We had 19 burglary calls and 6 incidents that led to arrest on that. Creating new laws or ordinances is not the answer by any means. And trying to fix things by doing it just shows that it doesn't work. The chief worked hard on getting a loitering ordinance put in place. We had 78 incidents of loitering with only 2 arrests. And if I may, Chief, can you help me understand that?
So the 2 physical arrests were made, but 9 additional ones were issued citations.
Okay, but when we implemented that ordinance, the purpose was so that we had something to act on, correct? So can you help me understand why only 2 arrests were made out of 78 calls for that?
So actually, there weren't any arrests made. In 2 incidents, there were a total of 9 citations issued. Both incidents occurred in the Sutherland's parking lot. The rest of this data, which is why we broke it out the way that we did, for the loitering, of those 78, 10 the officers were unable to locate, or in their narrative it stated as such. They were unable to locate the people. Sorry, I'm trying to see.
It would be 22. 22 of them, they were either unable to locate them or it was unfounded. So that unfounded, I believe what goes into that unfounded were moved along. Several of the narrations state subjects were moved along. My point to it is, and this is not by any means discrediting anything that our officers or police department has done because they've worked incredibly hard. But my point to that is creating new laws is not the answer either. It doesn't prove to fix anything. And if we back up just a little bit, I want to kind of talk about property crime for just a second. One of the things we didn't talk about, and we've hounded all summer about it, is the overgrowth of properties. The weeds, weeds, weeds. It really gives criminals the best hiding spots. Aside from that, it draws rodents. It devalues not only that property, but the property around you. It's a major health and safety issue. It hurts our economic development, and it's dangerous for traffic who can't see around these weeds that are taller than a vehicle. I think we've spoken and we've asked enough, and we've addressed this multiple times. And right across the street from City Hall, we have businesses that are in pitiful condition. And we drive by it every day. And I don't understand that. I don't understand why we're not dealing with those. We spray the weeds, but we don't cut them down, so they're still just dead standing there. It is not a deterrent for criminal activity. When we have junk vehicles with flat tires sitting on the street, uncovered, we have city ordinances that cover all of this stuff. And I think that we are falling short to the citizens in enforcing what we have on the books. Those ordinances have been reviewed by our city attorney, and they've been approved. We have actions that we can and should be taking, and be serious about it. And if people need help, maybe we can look at a free disposal day. You know, a couple times a year, once in the summer, once spring or fall or whatever, where the city can roll out big trash containers. And I know it comes at a cost to the city. But we really need to do something about cleaning up Riverton and enforcing what we already have on the books. We do not need to be creating new ordinances to take care of that. The other thing that we haven't addressed are curfews. We have seen recently juveniles that are involved in some serious stuff. And I may take a lot of heat for this, but I'm going to say it anyway. There is no reason a juvenile should be on the city streets by themselves, unaccompanied by an adult after our set curfew. I can't find any reason why they would be, unless they're going to or from work, maybe. I don't know. But I think we really need to crack down and hit that hard.
Your Honor, what's the set curfew?
Chief?
One of the cities I worked for, we had a problem with daytime burglaries and nighttime vehicle thefts. So we changed some of the wording on the existing ordinance to where if it's a school day and it's between a certain time, and I think it was like from 9 till 2, and if you were supposed to be in school, it was a violation of the local curfew ordinance to be out without a reasonable excuse. You're with a parent, you're going to doctors, you're going with the school on a trip somewhere. But also, we added an ordinance to where the parents were cited and fined for allowing their children to be out and not parenting and causing problems in the community. So that could be something that we look for.
We have that on the books Actually, right now, it's unlawful for any person under the age of 18 years to be or remain upon any of the streets, alleys, or public places in the city at night after the hours of 12 midnight until 6 a.m. unless accompanied by a parent, guardian, or other person having legal custody of such minor, or unless such minor is in the performance of an errand or duty directed by such parent, guardian, or other person having the care and custody of the minor, unless the minor's employment makes it necessary to be upon the streets, alleys, or other places during the nighttime until such specified hours. We also have it where it's unlawful for any person having legal care and custody of a child under 18 to allow or permit such child to violate this statute.
So,
Section,
Your Honor,
midnight to 6.
are we thinking, the issue with this, if they're out, yeah, like doing something wrong, I get it. If they're out not, okay, the second that a kid has, is seen, this is very serious, because, you know, having worked with juveniles, you know, for 5 years is my first job as a teacher. Recidivism is if you want to prevent recidivism, you cannot. Juveniles, kids cannot be seen as offenders. They cannot have that negative association, period. So unless they're doing something wrong, like stealing something or whatever, you know, being approached by police and being told like that, like that's just not necessarily a positive thing. Like keeping it as positive as we can, keeping law enforcement as positive as we can with youth is the only like thing that we can do. So, I mean, if they're out doing something wrong, like I get it. But other than that,
Well, they're breaking the law right off. They're doing something wrong. They're out after 12 o'clock.
I mean,
That's wrong.
I see what you're saying.
It's wrong.
But, I mean,
I'm going to
catching the
respectfully
people
disagree.
that are out, you know, stealing things instead of,
No, when we start making exceptions, that's where we start having the problems that we have. You can't say this group of kids is fine, they can be out, but then we see this group of kids, they're out or they're leaving the movies or whatever. And don't get me wrong, my kids were not angels by any stretch of the
One of 'em
means.
was.
Kids do nefarious things.
That's good.
You know, they say they're going to stay at this friend's house and they go to that friend's house, but, and those things happen. There are reasonable, this is where officer discretion comes into play. If they come into contact with a juvenile that's out on the street and they're simply coming home from the movie or work or whatever, that's a reasonable excuse. But if you see a group of kids at 12:30 at night down any city street, there is no reason they should be out at that hour. I'm going to stand firm on that, and I know people are going to disagree, and I know it's going to be looked at, but parents need to be held, well, they are, and I'm okay with that, but parents need to be held accountable too. There is a certain amount of accountability that comes to the community and to parents to help reduce the crime in this city. We can't just have kids running rampant, running from officers at God only knows what hour of the night at high speeds, putting citizens in all over the town in danger. We can't have it. Every town in this country has a curfew. They all have a curfew,
Not
and it's
arguing.
time that we enforce it. We have city ordinances on these books that are not enforced, and we need to enforce them.
I
If we
guess
want to
I'm
make a true
arguing-
difference, then we need to do that. And I'm prepared to put forth that effort to do it. I grew up in this town. We were taught to respect law enforcement, follow the rules, and our parents knew where we were at all times. The fire whistle went off, and I had to find a payphone and call my mom collect, and quick say, "I'm okay," before she accepted the collect call and hang up. That's not a thing anymore. These kids do not fear consequences at all. There are rules in place for safety reasons. There are rules in place to keep residents safe, and we need to enforce it.
Your Honor.
All right, real quick.
I guess,
Councilwoman
Your Honor, what I'm arguing is that I think that the police are doing a very good job and that they are, in fact, doing their job and working hard and catching these kids. That's what I'm.
Well, I do know that they definitely put some work into the car hopping and that kind of thing.
Your Honor.
But I do understand what you're saying about curfew. Go ahead, Mr. Bailey.
And again, I think it would be more effective to make the juveniles that actually do things wrong face more consequences, because right now, because they're juveniles, they sort of get a pass for a lot of these things. They can't incarcerate them, they can't. If I go steal a car, I'm going to jail. If a 12-year-old steals a car, they're gonna call their parents. And so, to me, and I don't think it's probably within our realm to change that.
They can't do
But-
12, but they can do 14.
I'm just saying, I think these kids need to face more consequences when they do things wrong. Right back to the scenario that I talked about is, if they get smacked good when they first start, they're gonna figure out that's not a great thing to do.
Yeah.
In regards to that, and
Mr. Sollers, go ahead.
You know, I think there's an issue here with the separation of powers between this legislative body and the judicial. Right now, either state statute or city ordinance states what the punishments are. If it's a misdemeanor, it's a fine of 0 to 750, and if it's a jailable offense, it's from 0 to 180 in jail. This body can't direct the judge within that range what punishment they're going to assess. That's not this body's role. If you want more stringent punishments, then you have to enact, if you want people for certain offenses to be thrown in jail for a minimum, you have to write the legislation, and then the judge has to follow that legislation. I know they did it with, in the federal courts when they passed mandatory sentencing guidelines. But they couldn't just tell the judge, okay, you're gonna, within that realm, here's how you're gonna do it. Because that takes away their power from the judicial branch.
Mr. Sellers, I have a question for you. Can we amend our ordinance to I don't know how I want to say this, not only appear before the judge with their parent or guardian, but a referral to Department of Family Services for follow-up? Is that somewhere, I mean, I know we can't tell the judge how to impose penalties or anything like that, I understand that. Is there any way that we can remedy that through referrals to Department of Family Services and must appears?
Well, you can do it, you can make it a must appear. Secondly, right now, any juvenile who appears in court already has to appear with a parent or guardian, or the judge cannot handle their case because they're a minor. You would have to write that in an ordinance to say, that the punishment is whatever, and a mandatory referral to an agency. Right now, it's not so much the family services, is the courts use youth services, is what it's called. I know, for instance, tobacco violations, on a third offense, there's the judge has set this, that they are referred to youth services for their supervised probation. The first two offenses are not. But again, if you want to direct the judiciary on what sentences they're allowed to impose, then you have to have that codified in an ordinance.
Okay, I think I mean, I'm understanding what you're saying. I'm just thinking that we need to have something in there that holds not only the juvenile accountable, but the parent as well, to answer to why was your kid out at 2:00 in the morning? Why are they walking down a dark street at 4:00 in the morning with a gang of kids? There has to be some kind of remedy to that.
Well, and quite frequently, the judges comment to those curfew violators, and there are some that are cited, is if you weren't up to no good, that's the only thing that happens at night is no good. But not only from the juvenile's actions, but from people taking advantage of the juvenile, sexual assaults, those types of things, occur. The parents do appear in court, are required to appear in court with the juvenile. And quite frankly, most of the parents' responses, 90% of them, the judge probably doesn't have to do much punishment because you can just see it's already happening at home. There are some exceptions to that, obviously. But, without the ordinance being changed to require that, it's within the judiciary discretion.
But it is a possibility to look at.
Through an ordinance, yes.
Okay. So anyways, curfew. That's something that I think that we need to tackle as well and pay closer attention to. Another statistic that I asked for was where the bulk of our calls are happening. And we all got the same graph. Last year, we had a total of 9,648 calls. The city is broken up into different zones. Central Zone and East Zone, which is primarily wards 1 and 2. 7,302 calls came from our two wards. Ward 3 saw 1,755. It's important because it tells us where, I think, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't patrol more in Ward 3, but I think that more of our patrol efforts should be focused on wards 1 and 2. Specifically, and I'm just going to speak about my ward, but City Park, and I speak from experience. Every morning when I go and open my store and look across the street, there is no less than 5 people passed out face up in the park every day. Officers I see over there all the time. They're constantly over there picking somebody up or breaking up a fight, or there's somebody in the band shelter urinating or defecating, or I've seen ungodly things take place in that park. I would really like to see a more physical presence in that area around City Park, whether it's hourly, half-hour, CSOs, I don't care. But we need to step up patrol efforts, specifically in wards 1 and 2. The alcohol and drug issue, and I want to be really clear about this, what I'm about to talk about. And this is directly to the media. I think it's fantastic that you guys quote us. I just really, really wish that all the information is shared so people understand what context that we're talking in. When I had made mention at our last council meeting about using the opioid fund settlements to assist law enforcement with their needs, I certainly didn't make the assumption that every single dollar was going to be used for that. I had several calls about people who were upset that I had suggested using the entirety of the funds for law enforcement purposes. And that is not at all what I suggested. I suggested using a portion of to help abate the drug and alcohol problems that we have and see here. Our officers deserve any and all assistance that they can get. They are our number one reason that keeps this city safe. Without them, none of this is possible to even try to tackle. So giving them the equipment and the means that they need in order to do their jobs is what I'm asking for. So I just wanted to make that clear. And I'm going to try and be brief on this because we have more discussion coming up on this, but we talked a little bit about liquor license holders. And I kind of want to just touch on a few things that I looked into and a solutions for this. I think we absolutely need to have more accountability as it relates to our liquor license holders. And this is what I handed out to all you guys. I did some research. Laramie and Cody both use a point system. And what they do is they assess points with the violation. The violations are similar, if not exact, to what we already currently have in our city ordinances. But I think where we fall short is every year we're asked to renew licenses. And there are clear violations that are taking place. Hence the reason we continue to have work sessions and meetings about amending our ordinances. We changed the hours because there was service being conducted before hours that were allowed. So that was noted and brought forward, and we changed the ordinance for that. There's been juveniles in the bars, and that's why we're going to be having another one to discuss that ordinance. It's a clear violation of what we already have on the books. There's been falsified or false applications, incorrect applications submitted. It's a violation of what we have on the books. We've had selling to already intoxicated persons. I was notified that there was, maybe tips violations or tips training violations that have already occurred since we just had that meeting. But unfortunately, we don't have an actual tracking system of when these people have been counseled. Or talked about these violations. So they just continue. And at the end of the year, we're saying everything's fine, there's been no violations on the books. They're all good for renewals. And that's not the case. We don't do background checks. We don't verify, I don't want to say we don't. We don't, I feel, do due diligence on the applications when it comes to license renewals. There's some information that can be double-checked and checked into to make sure that it's fair and accurate, and it would have avoided some of these things that I'm talking about. But I think we need to have a point system in place, and those points need to be accounted for by those that enforce the ordinance and the law, which is the police department, and leave the paperwork part of it up to Mia because she is most versed in it. And she knows what's required. And I know that there's a lot of people that think that I'm attacking the liquor licenses, but the bottom line is it's their responsibility to adhere to the rules and regulations and know them inside out. It's not the city of Riverton's responsibility to continue reminding them that they can't have minors in the bar, that they can't be serving outside of hours, that they should be selling to intoxicated people, they need to have tips trainings. I mean, if that's all a part of a packet that we give them at the time they apply for licensing, I understand that. But accountability is, I think, where we make the change in this. And if we continue to just allow this stuff to happen, nothing's ever going to change. Nothing's ever going to change. We just keep issuing liquor licenses. We keep making it easier for them. I mean, if they can't even abide by the rules that are already in place and then they come before the council and they want us to change it to even easier rules, what gives? This point system, the points never go away. They continuously accumulate. And it's an added layer of protection and accountability. If I'm going to be held accountable for ensuring that our city ordinances are being met, then I, by God, believe the liquor license holders should be held accountable for what they should be doing. We can't just keep saying, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. We need to be documenting these things. We have to document it and have something that says at the beginning of the year, you've been talked to 4 times about minors in the bar. No, we're not going to renew your license. Or you've been talked to multiple times about A, B, C, or D. And here's our record of it. There's an appeals process to it. It gives them an opportunity to come back and explain themselves and fight for the license. But ultimately, what I'm getting at is we have consequences written into these violations that have been reviewed and have been given to us as operational and enforceable. And we need to be enforcing them. If we're talking about getting tough on criminal activity and reducing it, this is a contributing factor. When we just allow things to keep going by, nothing gets fixed. If I'm going to be held accountable, everybody's going to be held accountable. And I take it seriously. I have one question for Rick Sellers. Actually, I had 2. In doing some of this research, and the difference between expenditures and revenues that we have coming in versus fines, I read that municipal courts have the authority to garnish wages or personal property of a defendant, to collect fines, costs imposed by the court, includes fines and costs assessed in municipal courts which are collected in the same manner as civil judgments. If a defendant fails to pay fines or costs ordered by the court, the city may commence an action in general sessions court to garnish the defendant's wages or personal property. Do you know if we're able to do this, or have we ever done it before?
I don't believe we ever have done it. You are able to do it. What it requires is filing a civil action in the circuit court, getting a judgment, a civil judgment, and then you can do garnishment off of that. You cannot do a garnishment directly off the fines owed, but if you convert it to a civil judgment, then you can.
Has to be filed in the circuit court. You have to pay the filing fee, which is $120 now for every single one.
Yeah.
And then you'd have to have them served, so that's another expense. Have to have them have a job, which I think most of these unpaid fines are not people that have jobs that we can get money from them. I will say that and I really appreciate this about the casino, since the casino, the Wind River Casino, has been an employer here. They will specifically have money that they will send to the municipal court for payment of fines. In order to get a job there, you have to disclose any warrants that you have. You have to take care of those warrants. And then you have to set it up to be making payments towards your fines and fees. It's something that the casino does. But in terms of there's an expression we use in the legal world, which is judgment proof. The idea being, if you're going to go get a judgment against somebody that is not going to pay the judgment, it's a piece of paper. Much like for some of these folks, the piece of paper requiring them to go get treatment is just a piece of paper too. Mr. Sellers?
Your Honor, and regularly, on a regular basis, the judge does issue warrants for failure to pay fines. And they come in, they explain it, she directs them to pay. If she probably gives them 2 chances to voluntarily do it. And then eventually, what she will do is she will basically put them in jail for contempt of court. If their payments were to be $100 a month, and it's been 3 months since they've paid, then the bond that she sets for them to get out of jail is $300, and that bond is not returned, but has to get paid on the fines. So that's the mechanism that the court uses. The mayor's correct, there's a lot of factors when you go to filing civil court actions, one of which is recoverability. Some of our largest fines simply aren't recoverable because the people have no assets to execute on, and they don't work, so they have nothing to garnish whatsoever.
That's some, not all, though, correct?
Excuse me?
That's some, not all, correct?
Some, not all, but I would also say that the majority of the people at least start paying something on their fines when they're arrested, hauled to jail, spend a night in jail, and then are brought before the court, and they have to answer to why they haven't paid. You'll see an upswing in payments after that. Problem is, they don't always continue like they should, and oftentimes the person is in a financial situation where they can't make the minimum payment set by the judge. Quite frankly, the judge, as long as they're paying something and making a good faith effort, won't issue another warrant. But if they just don't pay, there will be another warrant issued.
Thank you. I think it's just another case of us going soft on these guys. These guys have appeared in court. They've been issued a fine or a judgment. They know what their obligations are, and every month we waste money on sending out notification. It ties up staff. I don't know how much we've wasted sending to people who already know that they have warrants and fines. They don't care. They're not going to pay it, and we're wasting our time and our city's money and efforts and our staff's time reminding them. I think we ought to start publishing anybody that has unpaid fines, and we need to publish anybody that has a warrant
It already-
in the paper, on County 10, wherever. I know it's published on our city site, but I think it needs to be publicly posted every month. Everybody who has fines and everybody who has a warrant. I think we need to be making examples and getting it paid. Just an idea. Community service. I've been asked I don't know how many times about community service, and when I was lucky enough to get to sit down with Mr. Sollers, and he explained that their condition sometimes prevents us from doing that. Insurance is an issue as well. I think it's still an option that we should explore as well. They have debts to society that need to be paid. And while they're intoxicated or under the influence, they are incapable of doing so. But some of them, while they're sober, are completely capable of doing community service work. And then it becomes a question of, well, who's going to monitor them and watch them and all of that stuff? We have CSOs that carry the very name, Community Service Officer. And there's trash that can be picked up, there's weeds that can be pulled, there's alleyways that can be cleaned up, snow that can be shoveled. There's a plethora of things that can be taken care of in this city by specifically juveniles. But again, I believe that probably has to be amended in our ordinance to reflect that as a punishment. Is that right?
No, the court has the ability to do it, and if they're a juvenile, the court can order community service supervised through youth services. one of the issues you run into is when they're doing community service, they have to be covered by workers' comp. Youth Services has that in place. If you're talking about adults, then the city would have to purchase that workers' comp. Some of the individuals, while they may be fully capable of working, tend to also get injured easily, at least portray that, and then they get workers' comp benefits.
I'm sure there's things we can find for them to do where they can't get injured. But I think that that's,
I think you're right, there is, but the simple fact of getting them a poker, walking around the parks, picking up trash, there's certain individuals that'll find a way to get injured, stab their foot or something.
This
But
has
that-
this
that's
has
the
been a
issue.
discussion that I've had, and one of the things I'll tell you is, so number one, there's only so much that we can do from this standpoint in terms of directing prosecution or the judge. Conversations I've had with Judge McKee, I don't see her ordering community service. That's her opinion on it, as you've said, Mr. Sollers. Would not want to order it for risk of
Additional liability.
liability, yeah. I guess my point in that is to say, we can give the option. We discussed that just recently, and I forget which ordinance it was, but we had discussed the possibility of community service as an option. The judge could do it whether it's an option specifically or not. I mean, whether it's in the ordinance or not, she could order it as a condition of a probation or something like that. But she's very reticent to do it. So, I mean, until that changes, or, which, I don't know. I don't know if that's the right thing or not, right? I understand and appreciate the judge's position on it, but it's not going to be something that's going to be ordered, I think, by Judge McKee unless we had something in place for taking care of the liability for the city.
well, then I think maybe we ought to looking at liability for the city and advocating for that further, whether that's through prosecution or judges or another judge or however we look at it. But through our legal and justice system, we have to do, the true definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And that's where we currently are at. We have to do something different to get a different result. And I'm all about it. I think that there needs to be accountability. I think we need to hit first-time offenders hard, and really enforce traffic. Every area where we have the ability to do it, I think we need to do it. I know it's a huge undertaking. This stuff didn't occur overnight. It's happened over the course of years. But we can start making some positive changes, and we need to start looking at directions to do that. We can't just keep saying, well, that's the way it's always been done, or that's the way we've always been told, or we can't continue to operate like that.
Oh, I hear you. Like I said, that's one of the reasons I started the discussion regarding community
I think it's
service.
awesome, and I think it was a fantastic discussion, and I'm not going to take up any more time, but I really want to see us, I like Carla's idea of a solutions committee. I think it gives the general public an idea of what we're facing financially, legally, liability-wise. There's all kinds of things. But we really need to do better. And I think I think we have failed the community in some ways. And I think we've made great strides. I think the police department's doing awesome. I think they're doing everything that they can currently, getting new technology and stuff. We're doing what we can. But there's always room for improvement.
Oh, I agree. I agree. I guess in terms of things that we want to jump on and have some follow-up, either by staff or something like that. Any particular items that we wanted to,
The lighting issue.
I think lighting is a big one.
Code enforcement.
I think code enforcement's a good one.
Your Honor, I would agree that I think we need to get a little more aggressive on our code enforcement, the weeds. And I think if we could figure out a way to put some money in the budget that the city could go out and spray early in the spring and/or make spraying available to people to use or something so that, I mean, the key to the whole weed thing is get ahead of it early. And I mean, I was frustrated this year because the weed guy got behind the curve and, you know, if you wait till the weeds are 2 feet deep, then you're in for an uphill battle. If you can get them when they're 3 or 4 inches deep, you can spray and it goes away and you don't have a dead tree in your backyard or whatever you want to call it. And
It's the same thing. We have habitual offenders that don't take care of their weeds. And I would like to see the city, maybe we hire somebody to go do it and send them the bill. When it hurts their pocketbook, maybe they'll pay attention next year.
that's a possibility.
There's an
And we can put a
abatement
lien on their property if we have to for that, so.
Well, then there is, if you declare weeds a nuisance, if the nuisance is abated by the city, we can have that be charged against them. And I think depending, could be something that's a lien, but I don't know how that process goes.
Can that,
You have to
They don't
tell me
pay.
more.
Time, yeah.
Only if they don't pay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Your Honor, I think that's the exact way is the city sends out a notice of a violation. If they don't correct it, then within 10 days, I think, is the limit. Then the city can go out, hire somebody to mow it. We've actually done this at times. Send them the bill. If they don't pay, I think it's a 30-day period. Then we can go ahead and place a lien on their property for the amount.
I know, because I've signed a lot of those, but I don't know if it's been for weeds. That's usually been for property anyway. Ms. Harris?
Your Honor, if I may share a little institutional knowledge with regards to this. I started here in 2010, and we had many accounts sitting outstanding on our accounts receivable system for the $750 fine that was assessed to folks for their weeds. They were never paid. People didn't pay them. And the city actually hired outside contractors to go out and do the work. So then we were out even more money because then we paid for weed remediation for these folks. So over time, the city changed the process where we would have our city workers go out and remedy the problem, and we would take before and after pictures and then pictures of them at work so we could prove that it was the city that did the weed cleanup. And then we billed for whatever the employee costs were and then the cost of our equipment to do that. Recently, we did place liens on properties, and recently, within the course of the last year, I think, we had many liens on the same property that were finally paid off, thousands of dollars dating back to 2007. So they sat on our books for almost 18 years before they finally got paid. So that's just a little bit of history about how we've had to deal with weed issues.
I do think, though, ideas and different ways that we can approach this. I mean, I've said it before, weeds are a perennial issue, and they're actually an annual issue, I mean, if you're big into flowers. Anyway,
They're both.
true, though. I think being able to come up with different ways that we can tackle weeds, I almost want to think of it like, almost like the legislature does when they have an interim committee or what, do you know what I mean? I know that Mayor Gard was wanting to create a weed committee and had some people that were already pegged for that. Anyway, my point is, though, I think in terms of discussion and ways that we can handle it and hopefully coming up with some different ideas that we can address it seems to be the consensus of the council. So I think if we can, I don't know if we want to set it for another meeting with maybe for a regular business meeting, we just kind of discuss it and figure out where we can go and different ways we can do things. But we're getting a lot of heat up here for
It's-
weeds. We are, and I'm sure you are too. I mean, I don't doubt that every single department deals with it. I mean, I was just speaking with Mr. Toman about weeds in a we were talking about weeds in a curb and gutter. And then I'm sure your staff get phone calls about it. Mr. Butterfield, I'm sure, has phone calls about different problem areas. So I don't know what the solutions are, but I think being able to have that as a topic going forward is a good one.
Thank you, Your Honor. Having sent out mountains of weed letters in the past, there are some liability issues, because if we do send our crews out there, guaranteed one of them's gonna hit a priceless gate that was gifted by,
Benjamin Franklin.
yes, signed by Benjamin Franklin. It's worth millions of dollars. There are some, and I say that tongue in cheek, but there are some liability issues. If we damage the property, albeit we're there under ordinance, but we're still kind of trespassing, so there's some issues there. I don't remember, is it a citable offense? The nice thing about citable offenses are there must appear. And when somebody has to go in front of Judge McKee, that really usually gets action. And it wasn't fun, because I was concerned about our safety, the safety of the Community Development Department staff. But now that we have a community service officer, that they may have some backup. So, there was and I'll talk about, because this got me, like Kyle a couple weeks ago. There was a death. And so it gets to be pretty serious. There was a death down in Utah from a community service officer that was serving a weed violation.
Wow.
And so we have to be really cognizant of that. And, you know, yes, they're terrible and they're annoying, but they have real consequences. When people get really frustrated, neighbors, everybody, but we do need to take care of it. So just throwing a whole bunch of information out because I've got a lot of experience with that, but yeah, there's a lot to think about.
Well, and I agree, and I will say, I mean, you talk about that being a CSO with a weed violation. We just had here recently, not recently, but the last 3 years, highway patrol officer that was pulling somebody over for just a speeding violation, and he about lost his life. I mean, he was shot, injured, and had to take the life of the person who was shooting at him. It's interesting the way things go when you confront people about things. But I do think in terms of things we would want to have some follow-up discussion on, that's definitely one. I think that's a good topic of discussion to figure out with ideas. I think we can definitely talk about things like the liquor sales. We had talked about the idea of kind of jumping through different hoops, whether we want to move to a point system or something like that. Those are things that I think we could discuss, and maybe we could put those on, I don't know, if just put them for items to discuss with the liquor license discussions. I think I'm curious because at the time that we had the Solutions Committee, we had reached a point where the Solutions Committee had come with the idea of what we called the habitual criminal enforcement ordinance. I don't remember how it all went. And not to dance around the topic, we had the ACLU that had contacted us with concerns about that being able to impact people that would be of a different race or in a way that would be negative, and I think basically was threatening to sue, and it was not a fun time to be talking about that. It was a close call. I will say I was actually the tiebreaker against it.
We enjoy putting you in that position occasionally.
Yeah, well, that was when I was a councilman, so, I mean, it was a close vote. I think it was a unique idea, and I think it's nice to have unique ideas. The Solutions Committee, after we came up with that, I think there was some discussion as to whether we needed it or not, and it was a creature of Chief Broadhead was the one who had come up with it. And so in discussing it with the council, The mayor at the time was really against it, and so we said, okay, we'll disband it. Is there any reason we couldn't bring it back? Nope. If the council thinks it would be a good idea to try to bring a solutions committee back that could discuss some of these things more at length, could specifically discuss some of the ideas like treatment and that kind of thing, I'm all for it. We'll advertise it the same way we've done other things. I will say, when we did it before, there were no specifically appointed people to it other than council members. We had 2 representatives from the council, and other than that, it was just people who wanted to attend the meetings. We didn't have an appointed committee. We could do that differently. We could have it be something where we would advertise, we would see if people are interested in it, and we could have it be something that's filled, that are approved.
We had stakeholders, you know, we had representatives from a VOA, from the reservation,
It was,
from law enforcement.
yeah, even if they weren't
Had a broad-
official members or anything in terms of voting or whatever. We could do that again. We've talked about it a couple of times and danced around it. It could be a good time to do it. We could actually have that as an agenda item and discuss it, what we want to have that look like, rather than spending much more time spinning our wheels on it here. Any thoughts from the council there, if that would make sense?
I'd like to see at least 3 topics on our next agenda to discuss and get through, and we can knock them out 3 at a time. But really tackle the issue, and let's see what kind of positive change and direction we can go.
It wouldn't even have to necessarily be the next meeting, just depending on what we've got on our next meeting. But I do think sometime in our next 3 regular business meetings, let's throw on their discussion about Solutions Committee and figure out what we can do there.
That's what I meant to say, sorry.
What's that?
The business meetings is what I was meant to say.
Oh, no, that's
Sorry,
fine.
late, I'm tired.
No, it's okay, it's 9:30. So I think that would be a good discussion, and see what we'd want to have that look like, whether it would be just the only 2 official members would be council members, and then we'd have people as they want to be involved, or if we want to have it be something where we appoint people to it.
Your Honor, I'll send the former resolution or the previous
Sure.
resolution tonight to you. I've got it right in front of me.
Sounds good. And then lighting, I think, is something that we all have kind of expressed, I think, some concern about and trying to figure out that, whether it's kind of a lighting inventory, kind of like we do a tree inventory, or whatever that is, where we can figure out where's some areas that we can look and maybe have a plan going forward.
Work on a long-term
Priority areas.
lighting plan,
Yeah.
Yeah.
master lighting plan.
Master
Oh, my-
lighting.
You know, somebody is gonna come.
Yeah.
And they're gonna come, and they're gonna be saying, we will charge you $40,000, and we will give you a master lighting plan. You know what's gonna happen, Brendan? That probably exists, doesn't it? Tell me it. I'm sure it
I
does.
bet we could do that study cheaper.
I bet we could.
in-house.
I bet,
Your Honor,
yes, sir.
as we're looking at the master lighting plan, I did have a point of clarification I wanted to bring up earlier. The previous discussion centered mostly on our ability as a city to look at different locations and budgeting the installation, and then paying for, obviously, the consumption rate for the electricity. But I think there's another avenue that we would like your feedback on, and that would be development requirements. So when a new developer comes in and proposes a subdivision, do you as a council want to require subdivisions as part, or excuse me, streetlights as part of that subdivision agreement?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think that's
It's a good,
a great idea.
Ordinance
Is that your, that's a great idea,
suggestion.
Mr. Butterfield. This is why we have you. You're the ideas guy.
Toot it, to your horn.
Your Honor, we'll be happy to look at that for future developments.
That sounds good to me. And I think also, whatever that can look like, and Mr. Tolman, I'd be
Oh, you,
obviously looking at you, and I guess we could have some discussion about what that can look like in terms of a lighting plan, master lighting plan. I would say we put that on an agenda for one of our next 3 regular meetings as well. Try to spread it out, you know, in terms of what you need more time to kind of come up with some ideas. So I think the liquor sales, discussing that, weeds, I think that's definitely one we could put on there. Lighting,
did we want to roll the liquor into the next work session?
Yes, that's what I was just
Oh,
saying.
okay,
I
sorry.
think we'll come with some more there to talk about.
Okay.
And it's good because if we do that as a work session with liquor license holders, we get in a better situation. Part of the reason we've been doing that lately is because last time when we came up with the idea of the habitual offender ordinance, the liquor license holders came and said, you should have talked to us about this first. It turned into a big hullabaloo. And so before we made any recommended changes this time, we were like, we want to have a meeting and we want to be able to have them there. And they had some good ideas, I think, that were positive and were very willing, once they're heard about the ideas about tips.
Yeah.
So I think a little bit of,
They're the ones that live this every day.
yeah.
So they're probably gonna have solutions that we haven't thought of.
Can I just get clarification? Is this for the work session or for the regular council meeting? Since
We-
public comment was not allowed here?
I think we would probably do, I don't know, we'll figure out what that work session will look like. But I think you're right. We can get that figured out, what we want that to look like.
I think for consistent, if people weren't welcome to speak at this meeting, then it's a work session for liquor licenses.
We could do that. When we,
Will you invite them and let them talk?
What
Well-
happened tonight?
No, but I mean, it's okay for us to have an internal discussion about what our own priorities are as a work session, but that doesn't mean every work session has to be that way. If so, we're just sitting here talking to ourselves.
It's about consistency. If we're not gonna allow it for one, we shouldn't allow it for the other.
I guess it just
That's
depends
not
on what we've got going on. But
Well,
we can
we have a
figure that out.
Pretty specific set of stakeholders when we're talking about liquor licenses. So I think it might be appropriate to have their input.
Or
Yes,
we-
Where we can't have 10,000 people come to the city council meeting for safety.
But we could, though, do something like we did last time, which is just having a meeting with Mia and Kyle and kind of do it that way. I don't know. We'll have to look at what that'll look like. We're planning on that in October. We can try to plan that out. I hear what you're saying, Councilman Johnson. But anyway, for our later discussion, we want to definitely talk about those thoughts. Solutions Committee is one we want to put on the next 3 agenda items. As we talk about lighting, I think let's discuss the skate park, how we want to do that. We might want to throw in as discussion there too, right when I came on the council, the chief at the time was really big into wanting to have it so that we did not have the parks, he wanted to make it so that the parks were closed after dark. It made it easier for enforcement. We could discuss that because part of the reason we haven't lit up the skate park is because we're like, well, if the park's closed after dark, why would we have the lights on for the skate park unless there's a specific event? We might want to discuss that.
Makes it easier to view people walking through the park.
Oh, I agree.
Tony used to do that and patrol that area, and there were no park rangers in that when the lights were on.
Well, and I think you're exactly right. I'm just saying, though, there's the opposite side of that coin, which is if you have the lights on at the skate park, you're inviting people to come there and skate at the skate park after dark. And so there's just both kind of
Yeah,
issues there.
you're right.
And I think it's trying to figure out, and I think it's a worthwhile discussion. Do we want to have the parks closed after dark? Do we want to have specific exceptions to that, for example, for the skate park, up until a certain time of night? Or what do we want that to look like? So I think that would be good to discuss along with
If I
that.
could, so is there an ordinance on the books about parks?
They're
and when
closed at
they
dark.
close? At dark, so that's on the books now,
Yes.
okay.
Been that way for
So in the
about 6
wintertime, they're
years.
That's
closed
what I
at
was
5
thinking.
o'clock.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it or not, that's what we have. We used to have it where they would close at 8 or 9, I forget what it was. But that's what our ordinance is right now. Sunset. So anyway, I'm just saying that might be something worthwhile to discuss if we're going to be discussing the skate park, because it kind of ties into that. But that's what I have kind of written down in terms of follow-up. Is there something that there's been more discussion and kind of consensus there that I've missed? Because I do think some of these other things that you had brought up, Councilwoman Johnson, some of those could be things we could give to the Solutions Committee to discuss specifically too. So as we discuss that going forward. Okay?
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
to end the evening on a positive note, and I know we all talk about all the things that are going wrong and all the things that don't work, and I still think we have a pretty amazing community. We've got an amazing police department that goes out and does their job every day and keeps the trash collected, for lack of a better way to say it. And we want to support you in any way we can. And so we need your input, just like we want the input from the liquor dealers on what the problems they have and how we can help them solve them. We want law enforcement to tell us that. But you know, I travel a fair amount, and I know we all focus on the little things that we have going on in Riverton, Wyoming, and Fremont County, and all the bad things that happen. But we are not alone. And most of these big cities that I visit have a humongous homeless problem, and way worse than what we do. And so we have a pretty nice place to live. And we got a lot of amazing people that live in this community that contribute huge. You know, we've got people that participate. You know, there's not a lot of places in the United States you can travel and have a community that knows each other and takes care of each other and watches out for each other. You know, I've told the story before about, you know, one time our convenience store got robbed 25 years ago, and the guy across the street seen the guy doing it, and he went over, and the police came, and they sent him right over to the guy's house where he went in, and they arrested him. You know, and we had, you know, a person come in and try to rob the convenience store down on South Federal. And by the end of the day, they had him caught. And I think that's pretty amazing. And the reason that we can do that is because people in small communities pay attention to what's going on, and they report it, and they tell people, and so I think we've got it really pretty darn good. And that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to make it better. So I'm glad I live here.
Me too.
So,
I live here by choice.
yep.
I like it a lot. I love it. This is, I mean, I've been a lot of different places in and out of the country, and this is my favorite place on earth. I love, and I tell you this, and I always give you the preface to it, that it's your competitor right next door to you, but I love that RTO. I love their sign right when you get into town, that it says Riverton, the little city, or this little town or city with a big heart. And I think that's how we are. I think we have a lot of people that care about each other, and I think a lot of people that make good choices and a lot of people that make bad choices that make the rest of them kind of look bad.
None of us would be sitting up here if we didn't love and want better for our community.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
All right.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Carr to adjourn, second by Councilman Bailey. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. I vote aye. Motion passes. We are adjourned at
9:50.
9:49.